tea consumption in this country is, they say 30 cups of tea to 1 cup of coffee, right? And that's the statement that we've been hearing for a long time, right? It's gifting season around the corner. Yeah. And, you have these resellers who call you and say, "Aapke paas kya kya hai?" And I'm like, "Bas coffee." I just have coffee. I don't have anything else to offer you.
Your obsession with customer service is so much so that the reason I cold called you by mistake was because your number is on the Instagram page.
Correct.
I mean, how do you do that?
It's...
Welcome to the Indian Silicon Valley podcast. I'm your host Jivraj, and today I'm delighted to re-welcome a guest on the show whom I first hosted about the first 15 episodes on the podcast. Join me in welcoming Arman Sood, the co-founder of SleepyOwl. Thank you so much, Arman, for joining me.
Thank you, Jivraj. An absolute pleasure to be here, and it's been great to follow your journey from when we did the podcast. And to correct you, I was, I think, the second episode that released when you had just started.
Yes. It was during COVID, and as I was telling you, right, you were the only guest I'd cold called, and it turns out that you picked up and you gave me this task. You told me that I'm happy to do the podcast, but you have to tell me what different questions are you going to ask me. And that was the point, I mean, you may not realize how significant it was, but it made me really question myself as to how am I adding difference to a guest's life and how can I really have unique conversations. You in fact sent me some links to other conversations that you had on other shows, and I did that homework, and it built my muscle to date. Whenever I'm hosting somebody, I go through all of their public sort of recordings and go ahead and set my process. So I have to thank you for that, by the way, and thank you for the support over the years.
No, I think that's amazing, Jivraj. And I think as a founder who very often gets called to do podcasts by so many different people, it is also a way for me to filter out the serious folks from the non-serious folks, right? Yeah. And when you reached out saying that you wanted to interview me, I just wanted you to, go deeper into the existing content available, and not to add, value to my life as a guest, but to add value to the life of the audience that's going to spend time listening to this,
Absolutely.
Right? And keeping that in mind, I said, listen, sab sun lo, and find out, what you can ask me that has not already been answered in other content. And if I were to remember, you got COVID right after that, and for a couple of weeks you disappeared. And in my mind, I was like, I think...
you scared me away.
Yeah, I scared you away, and maybe this guy, decided that this is too much, and you're looking for an easy way out, and nothing that you start, no journey is going to be easy or quick, right? But to see you come back and, from me on the second episode, and I think Yash was from Baheko was on the first, who's a dear friend, to see you cross more than 100, 150, 200 audio podcasts, when you said, hey, you're on the video format now and you'd like me to come back, totally gung-ho and excited to be here to chat with you.
Thank you so much. I mean, as I said, that set so much of my initial rhythm and so much of how I think about the show. So always grateful for that, and glad to have you back because things have changed a bunch since, right? There's been so much happening, not just from a podcast standpoint, but also you were back then a cold brew company just coming out with, the brew packs. But now you are also, an instant coffee company. I was just telling you about how I was glad to see in Calcutta in a retail store, SleepyOwl as well. And the company's come ahead leaps and bounds. As we go deeper into, a bunch of things that you have done really well as a brand and we all admire as consumers, I'd love just a precursor to where we are in the SleepyOwl journey. It's been a while, 6-7 years since you started the brand. What all is happening? What's the consumer landscape like? Just give us a quick reckoner to that bit, and then we'll go deep.
Cool. So SleepyOwl started in 2016. So it's been 7 years now. We just celebrated our 7th birthday. 2016, when we started as three young, just out of college. We were just out of college. We just started SleepyOwl at that point in time. There was no other way for us to run the business but online, right? we were 23, 24. We didn't have as much capital or as much awareness of how business is run in India. And with that limited know-how and capital, we said, listen, the best way to do this would be to take our products online, right? And find a consumer, because we were category creating, right? Entirely. Cold brew was unheard of in India. It was a category creation play. And we had to take that play online and use the digital mediums, which would be at that time Google, Facebook, Instagram, etc., to be able to get ourselves in front of consumers, right? It was a slow and steady journey for the first 3.5 years till COVID. It took a lot of effort and a lot of dedication to be able to build ourselves and build our brand in that space, right? It was only 2020, like end 2019, early 2020, when we started foraying into retail a little bit, right? And by retail, I mean modern trade and general trade for us, right? In just Delhi and Mumbai. We just picked 2 markets and we started experimenting at premium modern trade and general trade stores, and that awareness came to us from our customers, right? We knew, with the limited data that we have, that these are the pockets where people are enjoying cold brew or enjoying freshly brewed coffee, and we got our products into those stores. When COVID hit in 2020, we were grateful that we weren't too widespread in retail. We were grateful that we didn't have any physical infrastructure in the form of cafes or restaurants to deal with. And we were a nimble organization, strictly, focused on getting our products online available to customers. So the COVID years, 2020, 21 were fantastic because we were able to double down on online advertising. We were able to double down on being able to get coffee to people in their homes, which was, how we positioned ourselves as a brand, entirely an in-home coffee brand. And we were, on that journey till about early 2022. But 2022, things started to change, is when we started, going further, doubling down on the retail side of the business, right? Both with product interventions and as well as, channel interventions, right? I think 2022 and 2021, 2022 was the advent of what you call quick commerce, right? And given that we were early players in the market, our access to these platforms and to get there to these channels was easier than it is today. We were primed up, ready for these channels from the point they started. And those channels became, massive sales channels for us. And, but obviously it impacted our direct-to-consumer business because we could never match the delivery speeds and timelines that these channels had to offer, right? And to hedge our bets and to, explore other avenues, we got involved in modern trade and general trade across the top 8 metros in the country. So the last couple of years, that's what it's been like. And, I think, educating India and creating a category in cold brew and freshly brewed coffee, we've enjoyed the challenge and it's been an uphill task. But we did feel that, there was a lot of space and a lot of opportunity even in premiumizing instant coffee. And, the first couple of years, we made that our enemy number 1, right? To get people to drink brewed coffee. But again, when you have consumer data and you start speaking to consumers and having detailed conversations with them, we realized that we were never the only brand or the only type of product in a person's pantry, right? Even our best customers who were, hooked on to subscriptions of our cold brew had instant coffee, not from one, but multiple brands in their pantry, right? So for us, it was a question, why not? Why not give the customer a fantastic instant coffee experience from the house of Sleepy Owl? And today that is our largest category or our largest revenue driver amongst all our, different product portfolios. So, yeah.
Wow, that's spectacular. I think 7 years, that's been a long time, but it just goes to show that the heavy lifting of educating the customer, building a long-standing brand, and then having presence in retail, which, goes to show that consumers want Sleepy Owl present all the time, right? Everywhere, every channel. And that goes to show the demand that exists. So I think it's come a long, long way. For me, the things that distinctly stand out about the brand and where I want to double click on to the next couple of minutes is, the fact that you have a very strong brand, the fact that you've created a category, and this retail bit, right? It feels like a lot of newer age brands think of D2C as a primary channel, but it also feels like everybody says, the experts, that you have to be present across modern trade, general trade. Before we go there, right, one thing that is a common and will distinctly show for anybody who's heard you speak is you talk about India not being a coffee loving nation or coffee drinking nation, and this is true, right? We've always thought of India as a tea drinking nation. How challenging was it, or what do you have to say to this statement in itself, right? If you had to give us a quick explainer on why this is so, and how have you transformed the Indian audience to become coffee lovers and built a very loyal, strong following for your brand, that'll be very interesting.
Okay, so tea consumption in this country is, they say 30 cups of tea to 1 cup of coffee, right? And that's the statement that we've been hearing for a long time, right? When we entered the market in 2016, our insight was that those born in the 1990s and then 2000s are all exposed to a very, very different world, right? A world that involves social media, a world that involves globalization, a world that involves you having access to, what's happening around the globe, right? And that leads to changing tastes and preferences, right? If you were to look at China, if you were to look at Southeast Asia, or any other country that historically, may have been tea drinking primarily, there also the shift was coming in, right? I don't think for the next 100 years, our coffee consumption will surpass tea, but for a good business to be built, it doesn't need to. It just needs to become, 3x, 4x, 5x in this journey. So we entered the space, very confident that we have to make coffee loved by more and more people, and we have to give coffee to people in convenient formats. And at the time we started, there were very few brands, and I would say it was probably a duopoly at that time in terms of brands in the space that were recognizable or loved, right? It became, it felt like it was strictly commodity with a brand name, right? Because of the market share that the duopoly had or has even today, right? And we were out there to break it. We said, listen, there's a lot of monotony in the category. Let's just make it fun. Let's make it exciting. Let's make it vibrant. Let's make it colorful. And let's, give customers, a feeling of joy when it comes to backing a brand or supporting it, right? And, we said, we may not be able to, in the next many years, let's say in revenues or in market share, surpass these giant leaders, but we can give consumers something to care about and something to bat for, right? And that's what we've been doing. Our mission has been to make India a country of coffee lovers, right? And it started with drinking freshly brewed coffee convenient, and which is why all our products were in extremely convenient consumption formats. And like I said, the more we researched, the more we went deep into it, we realized that India has such a long journey with coffee that as a brand, we would have to ensure a fantastic high quality instant coffee, because that is the most convenient form of coffee. Right. And, for people to jump from tea to brewed coffee is jumping many steps, right? So it's moving from tea, hopefully, to instant coffee, and then, gradually moving up to the brewed coffee ladder.
Phenomenal. I think that's super interesting. Can you quickly share any numbers that come to mind? Like if I had to ask you, how does India drink coffee, right? Like from your observation, like what is the consumption for instant coffee? What's the consumption for cold brew? What is that like?
Okay. So I would say, let's start with, India is the 7th largest producer of coffee in the world, right? Wow, so we have a fantastic, culture of farming and growing coffee and, coffee beans. Out of that, I would say upwards of 80% is exported out, right? So we have fantastic Arabica, fantastic Robusta. They're all exported out as green beans, right? That is, effectively without roasting, grinding, brewing. It's just green coffee in its most natural form that is exported out, right? The leftover is what is, for domestic consumption, right? Now, in what is for domestic consumption, it's largely, I would say, 90% plus of instant coffee, right? Brewed coffee, It was, let's say, when CCD, sort of began the coffee culture in the late 1990s, early 2000s, is when CCD started serving freshly brewed coffee across its cafes. You attracted, let's say the baristas, the Costas of the world at some capacity. And it was only 2012 when, let's say, Starbucks came to India, Blue Tokai started, that more of the freshly brewed culture came in. So it was strictly an instant market. To give you the cold brew numbers, 2016 when we started, I think we were one of the first brands to formally and properly do cold brew in India. It would be likely that there were smaller independent cafes that may have been serving cold brew on premise. Right? Strictly, if you were to go to that cafe, there was no brand dedicated to pioneering or championing cold brew as a consumption format. So that began in 2016 as a category that we started to create. Right? Now, when you have to do category creation, right, you have to wait for the big boys to come in and market the hell out of it, right? So it was in 2018 when Starbucks introduced cold brew across outlets in India. That is when, again, you walk into a Starbucks, there's a board that says cold brew coffee, you can order it, and that again creates awareness and popularity. 2019 is when other brands followed suit and started doing cold brew products, and that's helped expand the category. But to put it in perspective, right? If you were to look at the channels of sales, right? Across modern trade and general trade, very small category. It is still going to take a lot of time for the average Indian consumer walking into a general trade store to go pick up cold brew coffee from a retail store, right? That leaves you again with either on-premise, which is cafes and coffee shops that serve cold brew, and possibly, Amazon, Flipkart, Swiggy, Blinkit, Zepto, Dunzo as channels where you could sell the product, right? The Amazon is probably the only place online where a large cold brew category exists, right? Because Amazon has that scale and that power for so many brands to come and sell their products, and consumers are going and searching and becoming aware about it. In the case of quick commerce, because of how limited the assortment is, it's going to take a while before cold brew becomes an independent category and grows, right? Because if a brand is to have, let's say, 10 to 12 of their absolute best sellers, and that's all the space you have, it's very difficult to use these channels as a channel to grow a certain category, right? And I don't, you can't blame the partner or the brands because that's the way the game is played. That's the nature of the game, right? So cold brew is still a small segment of the coffee category. I would say brewed coffee in the form of dip bags or in the form of pour over bags, etc., is still something that is growing much faster. A lot of consumers, are now becoming more aware of ground coffee and beans and grinding themselves or brewing coffee at home. And that journey is coming on, but it's still dominated by instant coffee, right? It is still a 90-95% instant coffee category. And again, it is here to change, right? This is not how it will be 10 years down the line. It is 100% going to move more towards freshly brewed. But that journey is one that is going to be slow.
Got it. Very fascinating. I think just like understanding.
Actually, I'm so sorry. I think there's another very important segment that we should talk about, and that would be your ready-to-drink coffee.
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
so there's a decent opportunity in ready-to-drink cold coffee and ready-to-drink cold brew. Right. When we started, other than Nescafé and an imported Starbucks, right? There was no ready-to-drink cold coffee that you could go pick up off a retail shelf or, at other QSRs and other channels. So one of our mission has been to make, coffee more accessible, right? And today, I'm proud to say that 7 years in, having done this, Sleepy Owl, among the younger brands in this space, is second only to Nestle in terms of cold coffee sales across channels, and I would definitely not include flavored milk, which is coffee flavored milk in the category of cold coffee. Because by volume, that would be competing with Amul Cool Cafe, and that doesn't fit into the same bracket. But yeah, it's been a very interesting journey introducing India to a ready-to-drink cold brew, which was less acidic, low sugar. When we took that product to the retail stores in Punjab, it just didn't move. It just didn't move. And when we recently introduced thick, delicious, creamy, milky cold coffee with double the sugar of our cold brew variant, it's flying off the shelves, right? So it's again about how you do product development, keeping in mind your channel of sale, your customer in different regions, and India is a country where tastes, habits, and preferences change. I would say pin code by pin code, not even city by city or state by state. Yeah. So that's the nature of the beast in food and beverage. It's always going to be extremely challenging to keep everybody happy with a standard formulation or a standard product, right? Which is why if you look at the spice market, or the tea market, or even filter coffee in the south, right? State by state, there is so much, difference in the products and variants. Yeah. So that covers coffee for you, man.
Yes, that's such a comprehensive retainer on what coffee and what coffee behavior looks like in the country. I am myself surprised at many of those things because it's not as intuitive as you may think. Of course, things around diversity, yes, but then just how large the instant coffee market is in comparison, and there's so much to be done. One interesting question comes to mind, Arman, and as a founder, you're often making this trade-off between, okay, what do you stand for, where do you focus, vis-a-vis where you can grow and maybe gain market share. So I'm guessing that there have been times where you've had to make the trade-off of, okay, can we get into other drinks, can we do other bits, can we do more beverages, can we do tea maybe, right? Like, I mean, just thinking of the bag, right? How do you as a founder make some of these trade-offs? What were these situations like? Anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, so I think, great question, because the thing is, as founders, you're always battling what do you stand for as a brand, and how do you grow your business, right? It's a daily endeavor. This is what we talk about and fight about every day, right? And I think you have to have a right to win, right? You have to have, ultimately, any product you do, any category you enter into, you have to have what I think most founders talk about as the right to win in that category or that space, right? The other way to put it is, what is your competitive advantage, right? Why would a customer buy from you, right? Correct. Now, that competitive advantage could be either in your ability to, source the product at competitive prices, manufacture the product better than anybody else, sell it at a price point because of your capabilities that a competitor can't, right? So this is what creates your sort of moat in the business, right? After all of this comes, let's say, your brand moat, right? Like, listen, we are a brand that people resonate with and they like what we do, so they'll buy from us, right? But that's the riskiest one, because you're betting that the brand could sell anything, right?
Yeah, and that has the downside of they not buying you for the core product.
Correct. So that's always risky. So we have debated. So we started out as a brand that found and it was a genuine founder pain point problem, right? Like, hey, what's up with coffee? There has to be better quality coffee. There has to be more fun in the space. There's a massive opportunity in Indians drinking coffee. Simple insight. Got into it, created really high quality, convenient products, and built a brand that people love or associate very well with coffee, right?
Absolutely.
Would be lying if I said we haven't thought about other beverages or tea for that matter, right? Because seem like natural extensions, right, to what we can do. And but again, we still have to question that it's not just about slapping your name on a product and selling it. You have to genuinely have a competitive advantage if you're thinking long term, right? If I'm thinking, listen, next summer, I know my cold coffee, this is the category size, this is my market share, this is the only limited scope of growth that I have, तो चलो iced tea करते हैं, right? It'll be a flash in the pan, एक साल कर लिया, फिर है
it's
नहीं
not
है.
purpose led, and it's not long lasting.
Yes, and then for any category you do, you have to or let's say you were to do an iced tea, right? It's not about just creating a fantastic iced tea, right? In terms of product and taste, it's about deciding whether you want to manufacture that product yourself and therefore set up supply chain, which gives you a cost advantage, or if you were to go and outsource it to a co-packer, right? That's a very important decision to take in terms of product, its quality, its cost, so on and so forth. The next piece would be how much, while I said the journey to get more people to drink coffee is what I'm on, right? how much of my marketing budget would I need to take out of promoting coffee to promote the next category, right? And how would we decide to do that, and how much would we spend on the next category and its promotion, because khud to nahi bikne wala, usko bechna hai, right? So that, and then the next is, you add more and more complexity to your operations and supply chain, because food and beverage is very, 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 very different from any other category you may, or brands or companies may encounter. You have safety, which is number one priority. You're always trying to ensure that this is a product that people are going to consume, put into their body. So you have to take the time to do justice to creating a product that is safe. Then it's tasty and delicious. Last but not the least is they all come with a shelf life. Right? You have a 6-month, 9-month, 12-month. Let's start with brands that exist in the 7-day, 10-day, 14-day, 1 month, 4 month, 6 month, 9 month, 12, 18 month. That's your shelf life to play with, right? Most personal care brands are sitting on a 3-year shelf life for their products, right? And other categories have no shelf life at all, right? And they have their own challenges, no doubt. But with food and beverage, typically, product should reach its channel of sale and be available to sell with at least 70% of its shelf life, right? Anything less than that, it's difficult to get this product out into the market for the consumer to buy. Most channels, right? With e-commerce, it's a rule, it's the law that once it hits 30% shelf life, it should not be sold to a customer. So effectively, brands in food and beverage have what you call a 40% selling window, right? From the day your product is made, right? And shelf life tested and stability tested, where you lose 10 to 14 days there itself, to it reaching around the country to distributors, retailers, channel partners, and then, selling. And then your cutoff is when it hits 30%, after which it is considered unsellable, right? You have only a 40% window to sell food and beverage. And that makes it more complex. So as lucrative as it may sound, as much as we may want to throw other beverages into the mix, because let's say we tell ourselves, right, we have an infrastructure and a supply chain that exists, so let's pump it with more categories. It has to be a very thoughtful decision from all sides, and there are many brands, that in food and beverage that have, slapped their name onto multiple categories, and I'm not sure if it's working out for them or not working out for them, but as a brand, we want to be extremely conscious, and we want to do justice to everything we put our name on. So that is, we don't mind slow but sure. We're looking at it from that perspective.
Awesome. That's very commendable, and goes to show the trade-offs a founder has to make, right, after a point. And this is what entrepreneurship is about. Like from the outside, it's easy to look at it and ask this question, but this perspective really helps that it is a matter of a trade-off. You have to put quality on the line, and you have to make these in the long run to build a sustainable brand. Let's talk about that, and in the first conversation also, you introduced the term brand market fit that I've ended up using multiple times on the show, and remembered distinctly because, people talk about product market fit, people talk about brands in the air as well, but it just looks like, as you said, right, I associate SleepyOwl with coffee, right? And like that is the de facto thing in a consumer's mind now. It's not easy to do by any stretch of the word, right? And to do it consistently over a period of time. Somebody else on the show had once mentioned that brand is nothing but a promise delivered again and again consistently. And that's where trust develops. And it looks like SleepyOwl has been able to do that. If you had to very, distinctly highlight 3-4 things that have worked for you, and also maybe things that you had to resist, right? Like one of them being not venturing into other categories because it spoils the relatability with coffee.
True.
What are these aspects of building like a very, very strong brand presence?
Okay. I think we'll start with what you said, right? Sure. One is you have to be known for something, right? You can't be known for everything, right? And and that may not necessarily be a product, right? So there are brands that are associated with emotions or feelings, right? So I think for us, we started our journey with coffee and solving the problem in coffee. And from day zero, people have known us as a coffee brand, right? given the name and given coffee, it's been one marriage made in heaven for us, right? I think the name has brought us a very long way because it is memorable and it does create that recall for a consumer, right? So within coffee, there is, a strong association with Sleepy Owl. This has been hammered year on year through all communication channels, right? Whether it's through digital advertisements, whether it's through social media content, whether it's through events, pop-ups, samplings, tastings that we do, we've made it very clear that all we have to offer is coffee. In fact, it's gifting season around the corner, and you have these resellers who call you and say, "Aapke paas kya kya hai?" And I'm like, "Bas coffee." I just have coffee. I don't have anything else to offer you. Baki, you can figure out. I, as a brand, only have coffee to sell to you, and that's what it is. So this sort of reinforces that again and again in the mind of not just your consumers, but your channel partners, right? Your distributors, your retailers, everyone, investors, everyone in the ecosystem knows you for something, and it sort of sticks. It helps you stick, right? So that's one, right? And I think the longer you do this, the better you are known for that one thing. You're not diluting your brand equity, right? The second is, I think, just being 100% confident about the products you put out in the market month on month, year on year, and not compromising on quality, because that is what leads to trust, right? Nobody cares. Nobody will care for Sleepy Owl if we're providing, below average products, right? Like there is that love, or there is that thing, because the consumer is getting what they want. The brand has promised great quality coffee. Right. They're getting great quality product month on month. And if they're not, which is bound to happen, because I told you food and beverage is a very, very complex business, and we're playing with what is an agricultural commodity, right? It's not factory-made, formulation. Like, we're sourcing, we're sourcing fantastic coffee and repacking it in very convenient formats. And yes, we're doing blending with flavors and all of that. So it is, ultimately a food and beverage product, and a lot of things can go wrong, right? So it is giving the quality, and then when you're not giving the quality, how are you doing customer service, right? How are you solving, your customers' pain point? I'll tell you a story, right? Just yesterday, in fact, we had a customer who emailed us regarding this product that's in front of us, which is our dip bags. And he said, "I've been consuming your product for 4 years. And you've recently changed the packaging because there used to be a notch to tear the packet open easily, and I would, make my coffee. And in the last round of product that I've received, that notch is missing, and I need a scissor to cut the packet, and it doesn't open easily." And that just tells you that, man, my customer service team was not aware. They in fact told, and this is a gap, right? They told the customer, "We haven't changed anything," right? And because I'm obsessed with customer service, 20 minutes from the mail coming into us, I asked them that, "I hope you haven't responded to this email. I'll respond to it, and I'll tell you what I'm going to respond." They said, "No, sir, we've already responded. Ki kuch nahi badla." I said, "That's wrong. We have changed it. Did you check with the factory? Did you check with the packaging team? There has been a change, and the customer is right that we have changed it, and it is slightly more inconvenient, and we need to inform him that we're going to take this into account, and we will figure this out and, come back to it," right? Makes you realize that, one, that customer has been consuming our product regularly, years now, right? Second, how observant customers are. You cannot get away with trying to do anything left and right with your core consumer. You will lose them, right? The third is, how much it matters to them, right? In terms people care, and people only care. Now I'll tie this back to brand, right? I don't remember the last time I had an issue and that many a customer puts it under the rug and forgets about it, right? Correct. He's chosen to draft that email and share it. Correct. Not even sure, if he'll ever get a response or whether the brand will care or solve it for them, right? So from day one, our mantra has been, that you matter and you will be heard, and we will do our best to serve you to the best of our ability. And I think doing this 7 years at a stretch has, counts for making the brand what it is today, right?
True. And I want to add there, like, your obsession with customer service is so much so that the reason I cold called you by mistake was because your number is on the Instagram page. Correct. I was hoping to get through to a team member at Sleepy Owl and then maybe, ask them for a connect, but that is the level of commitment. How do you do that?
It's, it's just To be honest, like I don't see any other way. I think I have that fear of letting go also. But yes, my direct line is available in
how many
most
calls
places.
Do you get?
A lot. But it's okay, you know. I think it sort of, you know. See, what makes an insurgent brand or an upstart different from, let's say, a large multinational or a conglomerate, right? Is that if I were to face the same issue with, let's say, a large brand, I would probably not even write to their 1-800 number or to their email ID, because I would feel like, you know, this may not get addressed, right?
It's very impersonal.
It's very impersonal.
Yeah.
Here, the idea is to let customers know that it is not that way, and that, you know, we're on this journey together, that we're changing the way, coffee is consumed, and for that it requires your support. So we have fantastic open rates and completion rates of all our surveys, right? We do surveys with our direct to customer audience, whose email IDs and phone numbers we have, and you know, the people are so vocal, and they love sharing and they love suggesting, because they know that their suggestions are being heard. So I think it's a combination of all of these things that ends up making a brand and creating what I call brand market fit, because we have a portfolio of products, right? I have a ready to drink product that has a different category size, different channels of sales, different different customers that consume that. I have, a different range of products in the freshly brewed category and a different range of products in my instant category. Yeah. In all three, my competition is different. My channels of sales that work are different. My customer is different, right? So to look at, when you can't put product market fit as one, right? Like it's just so different for each of the categories. Hence the term or the thought process around, listen, as a brand, are you consistently, delivering? And yes, if over time what we've done, and if people, you say Sleepy Owl and they say coffee, your brand has fit, recall is there for the brand. So yeah.
No, this is spectacular, and I think this is a true testament to how really long-term brands get made, right? I think this really matters. From a market lens, right, there's also a lot of conjecture saying that India too, or how we define the 100 million plus sort of non-city Indians, they don't care about brand as much as long as they get the right product, right? And there's a lot of conjecture about how Indian new age brands will penetrate that audience. Will there have to be a different SKU that serves them? Will there have to be a different product made for that category? Because a premium, better for you product with clean label ingredients, which is made for, great packaging, great ingredients that a modern day consumer really wants, may not be applicable to the other consumer in the country, right? Correct. What is your thought around it? Is there a company stance on it? Like, how do you as a founder think about this trajectory from a future lens of what new age Indians, what that 400 million Indian base will also consume from a brand POV in the future?
Okay. I think you're absolutely right. When we started with strictly cold brew, right, it was very much a me problem that we were solving, right? As co-founders, we said, yaar, hame nahi mil raha. We like it, so baki log ko kaise mil raha, and let's just do it, right? And then when you realize that in that category, in that space, the baki log is just an extension of you, right? It is,
affluent, city folks.
City folks, well-spoken, college gaye hain, bahar jaake wapas aaye hain, so on and so forth. And you realize that, okay, this is limited, right? This is not the rest of the country, right? I'm not even saying, even within tier 1, there are so many, so many folks, right? So you realize, okay, that this caters to someone, right? And gradually you are able to create the right products within your overarching category for different segments of the consumer. I think the same applies when it comes to the, I would say tier 2, tier 3, or the next 400 million, right? As a business and as a brand, I think over time, right, there will be SKUs and there will be products that are catered to these consumers. Yes, and you would need to sustain, especially if you're in a category like coffee or you're in a category that is small, right? Having said that, your principles are still the same. It doesn't mean that, not everybody wants 100% Arabica freeze-dried coffee.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. That's not everybody's desire.
Correct.
right? There is an audience that wants it, that understands it, that appreciates it.
Right.
So for them, it exists, right? There's an audience that just wants a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that, so I'll also explain to you in food and beverage, there's nothing like it's like bad coffee and good coffee. I mean, that coffee is liked by someone, right? Like, for example,
it's about preference.
It's about preference. It's about taste, right? Like, so for me, I don't necessarily enjoy filter coffee, which is a blend of chicory and coffee. It's not something that suits my taste buds, but it doesn't mean that filter coffie is bad. It's such a broad, generalized statement. Like, there are people who love it, who really enjoy it. And in fact, what's funny is, there's a friend, Anshul, who's the founder of Youth Ki Awaaz, right? He loves our filter coffee blend. And in fact, there are messages that I get from him regularly that he loves our instant filter coffee blend, and he just... And I'm like, this is so interesting. It doesn't mean that this product is meant for just... Because it's not as expensive. It doesn't mean that, or because it's a spray dried coffee, or because it has chicory, it doesn't mean that ye unke liye hai. It is ultimately a taste and preference, right? So that you keep learning more and more, and I feel like there's a play at all price points. There's a play at all many ways to look at it, right?
Got it. The nuance here is also that is this consumer somewhat price conscious, which is why you cannot deliver the same quality to them.
100%. That is a fact in India, right? Like, as you want to continue to scale, a lot of people say, and speak about price conscious versus value conscious, right? Like, aap unko, it's not about price, it's about giving them value. But the reality is, it is also about price, right? Like,
because the shelves still have other similar products which are priced at a lower point, right?
Correct.
So I mean,
correct. And I would just add, right, in a product like, let's say, coffee, right, which in many ways is also a commodity, right? There's 100 grams of coffee, right? Usme kya value? Correct. It is
not everybody sees that value, so it's value is also subjective.
Value is also subjective, So it's like, okay, this is X amount of coffee,
correct,
and what is the price I'm getting it at, right? Isme there is limited amount of value, right? That you can deliver. Of course, there are ways and means to create a perception of value, right? Which is what brands have done very, very well historically across channels and spaces, and the idea is to do that, right? In retail, the promotion or the scheme of same 100 grams of coffee, but I'm giving you a free mug with it. It creates that value, right? That okay, this brand is giving me the same 100 grams of coffee, but I'm getting a free mug. That becomes value, right? But if you were to just look at it on a grammage to price point ratio, then there's no value. It's a price battle. And to be honest, when you're up and against, the largest players in the industry that have the big competitive advantage in terms of their sourcing, in terms of their distribution, you cannot enter the price war. Right? For us, that's a no-go. We have to play either the value or the premium.
Or just consistency, right?
Or just consistency.
You stay alive for 10 years, people just make you the default choice. Right?
Because in a let's say in a retail store, and that's where we are now, and this is what we're solving is, and we noticed this, right? Like, we entered with our instant coffee range in retail in January 2022, and you just have to be there on the shelf long enough for the person to pick you up and try you. There is no magic. Right? Yes, you can do shelf strips, wobblers, danglers, promos, schemes, all of that. But each store has its consumer base that goes to and shops regularly, or shops the category within that store. And soon enough, they'll say, this
is appealing, let me try it.
This is appealing, let me try it. They'll try it once, and hopefully they'll
love it and
they'll love it and come back again, which is why it's, your availability on the shelf in retail has to be A1. And you've got to hope that if and when the consumer chooses you over competition, after seeing you long enough, you deliver.
Yes.
Your product delivers what,
the promise that you
the promise for, and for the customer, and then you get your repeats, right?
No, for sure. I think
patience is the name of the game.
No, but this is very exciting, right? As a country also, we'll be answering this question very soon in the next 5 years as to which of these brands will survive the test of time, right? Which will actually penetrate real India, and where perhaps the bigger wallet of the value at least gets captured, because those new Indians, new on the internet, new wallet shares will come online, and they will probably buy it or buy it offline, right? So I think that'll be very interesting and lovely to hear your thoughts on that. As we go to perhaps some of the conclusory aspects, one thing that distinctly stands out about your journey is, the transformation from being a lawyer, or educated as a lawyer rather, and then becoming a founder, right? I often turn to Brian Chesky's story of him being, he claims, right, like he's the only design CEO in the Fortune 500s, right? Because the nature of entrepreneurship is such that we've seen a lot of engineers, product first folks come up and really build companies, or marketeers in a category like consumer come up and build companies. But for you, the journey has been distinct. What I want to understand is, looking back, right, what are some of the things that you have perhaps noticed in yourself really transform? Because this looks like just hearing you, and if I wouldn't have mentioned, anybody could hear you and be like, you're a D2C guy, retail genius, knows everything about brand, market, all of that, right? Which is, of course, the case. You've been building this out for 7 years. But how did that legal education sort of build you, and perhaps like how the transformation has been?
Okay. No, firstly, thank you. And I'll tell you, as much as it may sound like anything, I think we're learning always, right? We're learning every day, right? So there are some things that I've shared today in our conversation that I discovered yesterday, or I was able to, put those thoughts together or articulate them just yesterday. And now we have the opportunity to get into a conversation, and I'm sharing those with you, right? Yeah. So 2 years ago, I didn't know anything I was telling you about, but so let's say we started the business 7 years ago, right? But on day one, especially given that we were, just out of law school or just out of college, we didn't come with F&B experience, manufacturing experience, FMCG experience, or FMCG supply chain experience. We had none of it, right? We're absolute outsiders to this industry, which is why we've just learned every single day on the go, and as we try things, we get more involved and we learn, and that, of course, we make our share of mistakes, but overcome those, with the learning mindset that we keep, right, and sharing mindset, right? The more you learn, the more you share, the more you talk, you're able to get there.
Can you sorry to interrupt, but if you can double click on that bit, and how much of and explain how much of this is deliberate, right? Like some
it's
of it
all
is
deliberate. It's all deliberate, yeah. Because you first have to acknowledge, and say, I don't know what I don't know, right? Yeah. Like, or I know what I don't know, right? Like I know that I don't know these things. So once you acknowledge that and you're aware of that, right?
Then it
puts you in the position, I need to go figure it out and discover it, right? And we're continuously on that journey of asking. And I'll be honest with you, when we started, right, in the first year and a half, 2 years, we didn't do as much of, getting mentorship, talking to people, reaching out. We felt we know it all. Hum kar lenge types, right? But that was also because you didn't have access to as many folks, or, LinkedIn wasn't the way it is. There weren't podcasts. There weren't,
It was not as common to seek help.
It was not common to seek help. And of course, there were great books, which, at that time, let's say we read, or I read at least, but didn't implement right away, right? And in fact, now, my co-founders and I, we're rereading some of the books that we read in 2016, because it puts it in perspective of where your business is today, right?
True.
So yeah, I think that's sort of been the journey. Now in terms of legal education and where that comes in, I don't I'm not a big believer that education that legal stuff that I studied is being used in any way today. But I think going through 5 years of university life, meeting people, spending time, participating in debates, moot courts, student council activities, sports, or part of as many societies as I could be, including, let's say, theater. It just hones you as a person and creates you to be a more confident individual. And I think that is the most important piece of university that I take with me today. And I think practice makes perfect, right? So anything that you do repeatedly over time, you improve at it and get better at it. So I think, I just discovered a new part of me in university that you keep honing. Per se, my exams or my textbooks not necessarily, have converted. They may have subconsciously,
but
right?
Not actively,
but not actively, right? Because we still have contracts that are vetted by lawyers, and I don't read through them, right? So if I was actively doing that today, it would have been helpful.
Correct.
But yeah, that's sort of that journey.
Yeah. I think Peter Thiel says that, knowledge is a bad word. Learning is the better word for it. And we're all always learning. So I think that just shows. But no, I think very, very helpful to just, I think entrepreneurs have this thing where they're able to come from nothing in a particular discipline and just learn it by doing and by spending enough time deliberately on it, right? And that's just so magical if you think about it, because it's just so contagious and lovely to hear. On the next bit, right, I think one thing that I'm trying to do as a part of the show is to also bring the human side of what entrepreneurship means. So if you had to maybe, I don't want to put it in a stereotypical or a dark way, but there are things about entrepreneurship that we don't hear, which is like it's tough, that it's hard, it's a constant grind, there's a lot of hustle, it takes away family time, personal time, whatnot, right? What are personal anecdotes that you can share, or just personally share insights to what is the part of the journey that does not get displayed as often?
I think all of it, Jivraj. Everyone always wants their, their best stories to be told, right, in the media or in public eye. People are shy to talk about failure or your, misses. I think there is, I think some, while as an industry there is a lot of people supporting each other, there's also a lot of detractors, right? There are people who want to see you fail, or there are people who are not excited for somebody else's success. There's rumor mongering, there's gossip. I mean, all of that is just a part of any world, right? It's also a part of the world of entrepreneurship, right? And I think that can take a toll, right? If you pay too much heed to it. So as founders, as individuals, you're going back to the principles of what I said about your brand, your product, your customer. I think just put your energy there. Use that as, use that to drive you, and that really helps. But I think, this conversation and many others, right, do focus on, learning skills, insights, so on and so forth. I think, that there has to be one where, people can come and, pour out all the hardships and difficulties that you're referring to, that I'm referring to, and it should be received with compassion, with empathy, with respect, with love, right? And I think that would be really, really fascinating to see if that ecosystem ever gets created, because it is lonely, it is dark, it is tough. The only major positive that I see is, very, very lucky and fortunate to have co-founders on this journey with me who also happen to be friends. So my recommendation to everyone on their entrepreneurial journey is, find someone foolish enough to join you on this journey, and don't do it alone, right? That just makes life much easier.
Got it. No, I think that's very candid of you to share, because I think it often gets lost, and it's easy to lose sight of thinking about entrepreneurship as a very glamorous thing.
It's not
exactly.
It's just not,
that's the common thread. If I had to point to one out from all the founders I've had the pleasure of hosting, I think that it's not a glamorous journey, but it's a purposeful one, and it's a gratifying one, which is why folks like you end up endeavoring it. So this is lovely. As we, perhaps conclude, I have 2-3 very quick questions. One of them is a fascinating one, and I was, thinking, is that you are a, brand which makes coffee. Correct. But there's so much misunderstood about caffeine, right? Like, for instance, for me, I always thought caffeine will, it gets addictive. And there are some, of course, there's merit to some, there's not merit to some. What are your, 3-4, mind-boggling facts about coffee? Or caffeine? Yeah, so more than facts, I can just share my personal facts are, facts available on the internet. I don't want to be caught off guard with, incorrect facts, but I personally enjoy multiple cups of coffee a day, right? Coffee, in my personal opinion, is this wonderful fuel that really gets you, going, right? Like it has caffeine. It's a most natural form you can consume caffeine in. It is the fuel that allows you to,
power through your day, right?
Right.
More than that, like, I have about 6 cups of coffee a day.
Oh, wow.
And for me, it's not the caffeine. It's absolutely the taste of black coffee that I love, right? So if I were to, quit caffeine tomorrow for a week, it would make no difference to me. So I actually find it not addictive, but again, that's so varies from person to person and their body to body. But yeah, I've done, a couple of times a year, just quit for a week, and I don't feel like I'm deprived of something or I need it. So I drink it because I find it tasty.
Yeah.
I think, coffee, when they say black coffee is what is considered the healthiest, right? It's an absolute 0 sugar, 0 calorie beverage, right?
Yeah.
I think it could get its bad rap when it's mixed with too much milk, too much sugar on a regular basis, because then you don't realize that, okay, you're consuming coffee, but you're also consuming more with it.
Correct.
But I think black coffee should be a part of anyone's healthy daily diet. The reports and research that I've read around it being good for your liver, so on and so forth, like, everything seems to make sense that it is something that everyone should have. Yeah.
Got it. Perfect. That sounds good. If I had to ask you of a favorite brand that you have beyond Sleepy Owl, what would that be from the Indian startup ecosystem?
From the Indian startup ecosystem.
Yes.
Very interesting. I think both Noise and Zerodha would be two favorite brands, because they've both done it bootstrapped. And I think different categories, different spaces, but to do it bootstrapped just shows the conviction that, for people who say, listen, it's money, you need investors, you need funding. There are people out there building fantastic brands, completely bootstrapped, and I think that's very exciting to see. So I like their journey. I'm not necessarily a direct consumer, but journey of those brands is something that's very fascinating.
Lovely. I love that. For the second last bit, this is a new thing that I'm trying, but if you had to, just publicly acknowledge 2-3 people beyond like your co-founders who have played a crucial role in your journey. I realize this often gets missed, right? We're talking about the stories, but not the people who maybe played a part in it. Who come to mind? What are those names?
For sure. I think, and I said this on a couple of other spaces as well. Like, I think my folks, right? There's
family.
I think especially given that we were very early on in our careers when we chose to start up, and we also, all three of us, switched careers, right? So if you don't have the backing of your folks at that juncture or that stage, it's like fighting multiple battles, right? You're fighting a battle against the world for your product to exist and for consumers to come and choose you, and you're fighting, let's say, a familial battle. It can be emotionally draining, right? And I think that's a place no one wants to ever be. So you got to convince your immediate near and dear ones to support you on this journey always. I think my partner, my wife, because she's been with me, I think before we got married, so 2017 to 19, and then post getting married through COVID, and she's seen the ups and downs, right? And again, it's rarely are the downs spoken about as publicly, and I think that should be and can be a separate podcast if founders, including myself, would be willing to share that publicly. But yeah, to have a partner who is with you through ups and downs is always an amazing feeling.
Lovely. I'm so glad I asked that question. It really goes to show what support can do to the journey and how crucial it is.
True.
For the last question, Arman, and I'm so glad we've had such a great conversation. I want to understand some not to do's, right? I don't want to end with like prescriptive advice. That's what
not to
usually
do's,
can happen. But if you had to talk to future founders and tell them these are a couple of things that you shouldn't do when starting up, what would they be?
Okay. Interesting. I would say never start as an LLP. Start as a private limited company if you intend to, grow the business, because it's very painful to convert, and there's no direct conversion from an LLP to a private limited company. You have to acquire yourself essentially, which can get very tiring and daunting. So never do that. Second is, you don't necessarily, don't always don't think of just this is the problem that you are facing and then solve for that, right? Do more research into understanding how large the problem is and what aspects you find a problem. So I would say spend much more time than you think is necessary on deciding where you want to spend the next 10 years of your life, right? Like it needs to be very well thought through. And sometimes, like when we were young, right, at least when we started Sleepy Owl or got into this industry or this space, it was purely out of passion, like 100% passion, right? I think there has to be a healthy mix of passion and, pragmatism or practicality, right? Before you get in, so that you're just more clear about what lies ahead in the journey, right? That would be the second. And the third is, don't be in a hurry to raise capital. Don't be in a hurry to, grow your business. I think, it makes for great headlines, right? It makes for, but all your decisions should be made keeping in mind that it's a long journey, not a short one, because then you'll make decisions with that in mind. If you try and rocket fuel something or speed it up beyond what is natural or how it should be, you are risking it, right? It may work, but it works for 1 in a million, right? And then you're putting yourself in a very tricky position. So accept that, you may not be the 1 in the million, and it's okay to be in the 100 or the 1,000 in the million, but make decisions with a lot more calm and poise and patience, and you will be thankful to your later self for it.
Awesome. That's a perfect way to end the conversation. Thank you so much for being on the show. This has been such a pleasure.
Thank you, Jivraj.